Richard Cole stood by the large window of Earth's space station. He watched the alien ship floating in the darkness. Stars filled the background like tiny lights on a black cloth. The ship belonged to the Galactic Council, a group of alien races that ruled most of the galaxy. For 3 long years, Richard had worked as Earth's ambassador to this council. For 3 years, he had listened to their rules and accepted their decisions. Today would be different. The meeting room was huge. 17 different alien species sat in a circle around him. Some looked like insects. Others appeared as clouds of gas held together by energy fields. A few resembled creatures from Earth's oceans, while others defied any comparison. They all had one thing in common. They thought humans were beneath them. They treated Earth like a child asking adults for permission to play. 5 years ago, humanity had discovered faster than light travel. The technology allowed ships to cross vast distances in space. Within months of that discovery, the Galactic Council had found Earth. They offered membership in their ancient organization. Humanity accepted, thinking it would open doors to new knowledge and friendship among the stars. Instead, they found only closed doors and dismissive attitudes. Every request humanity made was denied. Earth wanted to share medical technology that could save lives across the galaxy. The Council said no. Human scientists developed better energy systems than most Council members used. The Council blocked their distribution. Earth proposed new trade routes that would benefit dozens of species. The Council voted against them. Always the same answer. Always the same condescending tone. Not yet, not ready. Come back in a decade or 2 or 10. The Varathian delegate spoke. His body looked like a living crystal, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. His voice came through a translation device that all species used to understand each other. The device turned his native sounds into words Richard could understand. The meaning was clear enough. Humanity had failed again. Your species does not meet our standards, the Varathian said. We deny your application for full membership. You may try again in 10 years. His tone suggested he expected Richard to bow and accept this judgment. That was how things worked in the Council. The old species commanded. The young species obeyed. Richard took a breath. Behind him stood Patricia Hayes, a military commander responsible for security at the diplomatic mission. Next to her was Nathan Price, Earth's best scientist when it came to alien technology. Both wore their dress uniforms. Both had known this moment was coming. They had prepared for months. Delegate Vornash, Richard said. His voice was calm but carried weight. Several aliens shifted in their seats. Humanity did not come here to beg. We came to inform you of our decision. Earth is leaving the Galactic Council. We are cutting all diplomatic ties. We are canceling every trade agreement. We are pulling all human personnel from Council space. This is effective immediately. Silence filled the chamber. In 3 years of meetings, no human had ever spoken to a senior delegate this way. The aliens stared at Richard. Some seemed confused. Others appeared angry. A few looked almost amused, as if watching a child throw a tantrum. You cannot leave, Vornash said. His crystal body darkened. There are procedures. There are protocols that take many years to complete. You must follow our rules. Watch us, Richard replied. He nodded to Patricia. She touched a device on her wrist. Captain Bennett, begin Operation Phoenix. Throughout the massive station, human workers began moving. Every diplomat packed their belongings. Every scientist gathered their research. Every technician secured their tools. They had practiced this evacuation for weeks. Within minutes, small transport ships started launching from the docking bays. Humans were leaving, and they were not asking permission. An alien that looked like a giant snake began speaking. Its name was difficult for humans to pronounce, but the translator called it the Kelzarian Observer. This is foolish, it hissed. Your species will be alone, cut off from galactic trade, isolated from technological exchange. You will fall back to primitive conditions within a generation. You need us. Nathan stepped forward. He held a small computer tablet. Actually, we have done well with what little you shared. Much better than you realize. While you blocked our requests and denied our applications, we were busy. We studied everything you gave us. We improved it. Impossible, Vornash declared. Your technology is hundreds of years behind Council standards. You are primitives playing with tools you barely understand. We were, Richard corrected. Allow me to introduce you to Project Prometheus. While you debated and denied, We reverse-engineered every piece of technology we could access. Your translation devices, your power systems, your faster-than-light engines. We took them apart. We studied them. We made them better. The windows suddenly blazed with light. 9 massive warships appeared around the station. They emerged from faster-than-light travel with perfect precision. These ships were nothing like the small vessels the Council had allowed humanity to build. They were enormous, covered in weapon systems, protected by powerful shields. They were human-made, human-crewed, and completely unauthorized by Council law. Patricia smiled. Meet the Unity-class battlecruisers. They are faster than your fastest scout ships. Their shields can survive a direct hit from a Council dreadnought. Their weapons make your plasma cannons look like toys. We built 9 of them in secret. We have 30 more under construction. The Council chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. The translator struggled to keep up. Accusations flew. Threats were made. But Richard noticed something else in the chaos. He heard fear in their voices. These ancient species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were afraid of what humans had accomplished in just 5. A 4-armed alien military officer stood. The Exarians were known as the Council's enforcers. They handled military matters. You have violated 12 different treaties, it growled. You built weapons in secret. You developed military technology without authorization. The Council will respond with force. We will destroy these ships and imprison your leaders. Then you will learn exactly how creative humans become when our survival is threatened, Richard said. His voice was quiet but hard. But I do not think you will attack. Because you know what we discovered. You know the truth, he paused. The chamber grew silent. Everyone waited for his next words. Your Council has not produced a major technological breakthrough in 3,000 years. You recycle the same innovations your ancestors developed long ago. You have grown comfortable. You have become lazy. Meanwhile, humanity went from the first airplane to landing on our moon in 66 years. From the first computer to artificial intelligence in 80. We do not just adopt technology. We revolutionize it. We make it better. That is what you feared. That is why you tried to keep us small. The last transport ship departed. Richard, Patricia, and Nathan walked to the docking bay. Behind them, the Council continued shouting threats and making demands. But their words meant nothing now. The game had changed. Everyone knew it. Their small shuttle accelerated toward the waiting battlecruiser. Nathan looked back at the receding station. Do you think they will attack us? Not today, Richard answered. Today they will argue. They will debate. They will try to save face and pretend they are still in control. But eventually they will come. Either to negotiate on our terms or to try forcing us back into submission. Patricia looked determined. Let them come. Humanity did not survive ice ages and world wars by backing down. We did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by accepting limits others placed on us. We are done being the junior members of their club. We are done asking for permission. The shuttle docked with the lead battlecruiser. Captain Gregory Bennett met them at the airlock. He was a veteran military officer with 20 years of service. Welcome aboard the Vanguard, Ambassador. What are your orders? Set course for Earth, Richard commanded. It is time to tell our species that we are on our own now, and it is time to show the galaxy what humans can really do when we stop asking for permission and start taking what we have earned. The battlecruiser's engines powered up. The ship turned away from the Council station and pointed toward home. Behind them, the old order trembled. Ahead of them, a new era waited to begin. 6 hours after humanity walked out of the Council chamber, the aliens gathered again. This time it was an emergency session. The large meeting room buzzed with angry voices and worried whispers. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained order through strict rules and careful control. No species had ever simply left before. No one had dared. High Arbiter Zelthar called the meeting to order. He was ancient even by alien standards. For 500 years, he had guided the Council through various crises, but never had he seen such panic among the member species. The humans had broken the unwritten rule. They had refused to play by the established system. Worse, they had shown they were strong enough to back up that refusal. Vornash spoke first. The Varathian was still angry about the morning's events. We must address this immediately. The humans have violated every protocol regarding military development. They built warships in secret. They created weapons without permission. This represents a threat to galactic stability. We must act. Kira Webb stood up. She was the only human who had stayed behind at the council station. Earth had left her there deliberately as a final voice for human interests. "You created this threat," she said. Her voice was firm. "For 5 years you blocked every reasonable request we made. You denied us medical technologies that could have saved millions of lives. You restricted our trade routes. You limited our expansion to our own solar system. What did you expect would happen?" The Exarian military coordinator slammed a fist on his desk. "You are dangerous. Your species is aggressive and unpredictable. You resort to violence too quickly. The restrictions were necessary. They protected everyone from human recklessness." Kira's expression grew cold. "Dangerous? We ended our last major planetary war 70 years before first contact. Meanwhile, 3 council members are currently fighting what you call territorial adjustments. Everyone else calls it conquest. The Drevian Empire has absorbed 6 smaller species in the last century. The council did nothing but write strongly worded statements. Who is really dangerous here? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. What she said was true. Everyone knew it. But speaking such truths out loud violated the council's polite pretense that everything was fine. High Arbiter Zelthar raised his hand. The delegate makes valid points. However, we must focus on the immediate situation. Our intelligence division has analyzed the human vessels. Fleet Commander Sareth will present his findings. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed detailed images of humanity's new warships. Fleet Commander Sareth stepped forward. He was a battle-scarred veteran who had fought in dozens of conflicts. His next words shocked the assembled delegates. "The analysis is deeply concerning," Sareth began. "These vessels incorporate technology from at least 9 different council species. But the humans did not simply copy our designs. They improved them. Their shield systems cycle at frequencies we never considered practical. Their weapons use a hybrid design that defeats our standard point defense systems. Their power generation exceeds our best designs by 32%. "That is impossible," Fornash insisted. "They have only had access to our technology for 5 years. 5 years. We have spent millennia perfecting these systems. Clearly it is not impossible," Sareth replied. His tone was dry. "I recommend we treat humanity as a peer military power. A direct confrontation would be very costly. The outcome would be uncertain. I cannot guarantee we would win." The chamber erupted in arguments. But Kira noticed something beneath the anger. She heard fear. The council had based its power on technological superiority and careful control of advanced knowledge. Humanity had shattered that monopoly in just 5 years. If humans could do it, what would stop other species from trying? Meanwhile, aboard the battlecruiser Vanguard, Richard met with his senior staff. Captain Bennett had gathered the key people from Project Prometheus. These were the military commanders, scientists, engineers, and political advisors who had spent years preparing for this moment. They sat around a conference table planning humanity's next moves. "We have crossed the point of no return," Richard announced. "The Council will either negotiate with us as equals, or they will try to force us back into submission. We need to be ready for both possibilities." Commander Samuel Wright stood up. He led the newly formed Terran Defense Fleet. "Our forces are ready. Beyond the 9 battlecruisers you saw today, we have 37 frigates and 15 destroyers already built. We have 4 heavy carriers under construction at the Luna shipyards. In 6 months, we will have a fleet capable of defending every major human colony." Dr. Linda Morgan spoke next. She directed the Civilian Infrastructure Program. "What about resources? We have been dependent on Council-approved trade routes for rare elements and exotic materials.
Can we survive without them?"
Nathan activated a star chart on the central display. "We identified 7 asteroid belts within reach. They contain everything we need. Our new mining vessels can extract and process materials faster than Council techniques allow. We will be completely self-sufficient within 18 months. Patricia raised a concern. "What about the colonies? Mars, Europa, and the outer settlements are vulnerable. If the Council decides to make examples of them, can we protect them?" Samuel nodded. "Already handled. Each colony now has a defense platform and garrison. Nothing that could stop a full Council fleet, but enough to make any attack very expensive. We are betting the Council will not want to pay that price." Richard studied the faces around the table. These people had sacrificed years of their lives to a secret project. They had worked in shadows while their colleagues conducted pointless diplomatic negotiations. They had believed in humanity's potential when the Council tried to cage it. "We are about to find out if we are as capable as we believe," Richard said quietly. "The Council has had thousands of years to perfect their systems. We have had 5. Everything depends on whether human innovation can match alien experience." "It already has," Nathan said firmly. "Every challenge they thought would take us decades, we solved in months. Every limitation they assumed we would accept, we found a way around. They kept us small because they feared what we would become if given the chance. And now they will see exactly what they feared," Patricia added. "A human civilization with no limits except those we choose for ourselves." The meeting continued late into the ship's night cycle. They planned for every possibility they could imagine. But Richard felt a growing certainty. Humanity had not just cut ties with the Galactic Council. They had declared independence from an order that had stood for thousands of years. Like all declarations of independence throughout human history, it would be written in both words and, if necessary, blood. Back in the council chamber, High Arbiter Zelthar finally restored order. The debates had raged for hours. Now he needed to make a decision. "We will not act hastily," he declared. "But we cannot ignore this challenge to galactic order. I propose we send an envoy to Earth, one with full authority to negotiate new terms. If humanity wishes to stand as equals, let us see if they can handle the responsibilities that come with that status." "And if they refuse?" Vornash demanded. "If they reject our generous offer to negotiate?" The High Arbiter's expression grew dark. "Then we will discover whether the Council's age has made us wise or simply old. We will learn if we can still adapt to new circumstances, or if we have become too rigid to survive." The vote was called. Despite significant opposition, the motion passed. An envoy would be sent to Earth. The Council would attempt diplomacy before considering military options. It was a small victory for those who hoped for peaceful resolution, but everyone knew it was only the first step in a much longer struggle. In her quarters, Kira composed a message to Richard. She used a secure channel that the Council could not intercept. "The Council is fracturing," she wrote. "Some species support reform. Others want to crush you. The hardliners are planning something. Watch for covert operations, economic pressure, sabotage. They will try to weaken you before any open conflict. Be careful." She sent the message and stared out her window at the stars. Humanity had taken an enormous risk. The old powers would not give up their control easily. Blood might be spilled before this was over, but maybe, just maybe, the galaxy needed this conflict. Maybe it needed to be reminded that power earned through merit mattered more than power maintained through tradition. The next few months would determine the fate of not just humanity, but of the entire galactic order. Kira hoped her species was ready for what was coming, because ready or not, the storm was about to break. 3 weeks passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Earth's long-range sensors detected something unusual at the edge of the solar system. A single vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel near Neptune's orbit. It broadcast peace codes and requested permission to approach Earth. The ship belonged to the Luminary Concord, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. Admiral Christine Parker commanded Earth Defense Command from a station in high orbit. She studied the incoming vessel with suspicion. After years of being denied and dismissed by the Council, trust did not come easily to humans anymore. The aliens had made their position clear. Now they wanted to talk. The question was why. "What do we know about the ship?" she asked her tactical officer. Lieutenant Aaron Blake checked his display. "Single vessel. Meridian-class diplomatic cruiser. No escort, minimal weapons. Registry identifies it as carrying High Envoy Talshir of the Luminary Concord." "That is significant, Admiral. The Luminari rarely involve themselves directly in Council politics." "Because they do not need to," Christine replied. "They are the oldest surviving civilization in the Council. When they speak, others listen." "Richard, what is your assessment?" Richard Cole stood beside her at the command console. He now served as Earth's chief diplomatic officer. "It is a test. The Council wants to see if we will honor diplomatic protocols, now that we have rejected their authority. If we refuse the envoy, they can paint us as dangerous warmongers. If we accept, they will try to manipulate the negotiations. So we lose either way," Christine observed. "Not necessarily. The Luminari are different from species like the Vorathians. They value genuine dialogue over power games. If we show strength but also willingness to engage, we might actually accomplish something. Christine considered this carefully. Grant them approach clearance. But they dock at the Geneva orbital platform, not the command station. Full security detail. Make it clear that any deviation from the approved flight path will be met with immediate interception. 2 days later, Richard sat in a conference room aboard the Geneva platform. High Envoy Talshir sat across from him at a simple table. The luminary was unlike any species Richard had encountered before. Its form seemed to shift in the light, as if it existed partially in dimensions human eyes could not fully perceive. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonics that suggested great age and wisdom. Ambassador Cole, I thank you for receiving me, despite the circumstances of our people's parting. High Envoy, I hope you understand that we hold no anger toward individual species, including the Luminari. Our quarrel is with a system that has become frozen and unjust. Talshir's form rippled in what might have been amusement. Frozen, an accurate description. The Council was formed 12,000 years ago, when my ancestors were young and the galaxy seemed infinite. We created rules to maintain peace among species with vastly different capabilities. Over time, those rules became chains. Richard leaned forward. Then why maintain them? The Luminari have enough influence to reform the system. We might have had such influence once, Talshir admitted. But we grew tired of conflict thousands of years ago. We chose to step back to observe rather than direct. Perhaps that was wisdom, or perhaps it was merely cowardice dressed in philosophical clothing. The envoy's honesty surprised Richard. In 3 years of council negotiations, no delegate had ever spoken so openly about the system's failures. What does the council want? Richard asked directly. The council wants to understand your intentions. Some members fear you will become conquerors. Others believe you will trade freely with species who compete with their own interests. A few, the wiser ones, understand that humanity represents something the Council has not seen in a very long time, a catalyst for change. And what do you believe? Talshir was silent for a long moment. I believe humanity is dangerous, Ambassador. Dangerous in the way all truly vital species are dangerous. You push boundaries. You question limitations. You refuse to accept that things must remain as they have always been. The Council needed such a species 10,000 years ago. Perhaps it still does. We did not leave to start a war, Richard said firmly. We did it because we refused to be eternal supplicants, waiting for permission to reach our potential. If the Council can accept us as equals, genuine equals, then perhaps there is a path forward. But we will not return to the old arrangement. I expected nothing less. The Council has authorized me to offer a proposal. Humanity would be granted full membership with all rights and responsibilities. No more restrictions on your technology development. No limits on your expansion beyond your current territories. In return, you would agree to mutual defense pacts and trade agreements under the Standard Council framework. Richard felt anger rise in his chest. The same framework that allowed the Drevian Empire to absorb 6 minor species. The same framework that ignores territorial conquest as long as it happens slowly enough. We have studied your laws, Envoy. They protect the powerful and constrain the weak. You are correct, Talshir said simply. The framework is broken. I am authorized to discuss reforms, should humanity have specific proposals. Now it was Richard's turn to pause. This was the opportunity they had prepared for, but it was also a minefield. Propose too little, and they would be trapped in the same broken system. Propose too much, and the Council would reject everything. We want 3 things, Richard said finally. First, true sovereignty. No species should have the right to veto another's internal policies or development, as long as those policies do not directly harm others. Second, an end to the current power structure. The inner council that controls major decisions must be reformed to give all members an equal voice. Third, enforcement. The council must actually intervene when species engage in aggressive expansion, not just issue statements. Talshir's form darkened. You ask for a revolution, not a reform. I ask for justice, Richard corrected. The Council claims to maintain galactic order, but it actually maintains galactic stagnation. How many species have been denied advancement because it threatened established powers? How many innovations have been suppressed because they would disrupt existing trade monopolies? You speak of things you cannot prove. Richard activated a holographic display. It showed data compiled by human intelligence services over 5 years. Here are 17 species who applied for council membership in the last century. Only 2 were accepted. The others were told they did not meet standards. But look at the common factor. Every rejected species had technological innovations that would have competed with established council industries. More data appeared. Here are 43 instances where the council failed to intervene in territorial disputes, despite clear violations of the charter. In every case, one of the aggressor species sat on the inner council, or had close ties to those who did. And here, Richard continued, his voice hardening, are records we uncovered of deliberate technology suppression, medical advances that could have saved billions of lives, energy systems that would have eliminated resource scarcity, agricultural techniques that would have ended hunger on a dozen worlds, all shelved because they threatened the economic interests of council members. The silence that followed was absolute. Talshir studied the data for long minutes. Its form flickered with what might have been distress. "Where did you obtain this information?" the envoy asked finally. "We are human," Richard said with a slight smile. "We excel at finding things people do not want found. You blocked our technological development, but you could not stop us from learning about yours. Every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic reception was an opportunity to gather intelligence. You underestimated us because you saw us as primitive. That was your mistake." Talshir was silent for another long moment. "If I present this to the council, there will be consequences. Species will be accused of corruption. The inner council will resist any changes to their authority. This could tear the council apart." "Then let it tear," Richard said bluntly. "A corrupt institution that maintains itself through suppression does not deserve to survive. But I think there are enough honest species left in the council to demand reform. Species like the Luminari, who remember what the council was supposed to be." The High Envoy stood. Its form solidified into something more defined. "You have given me much to consider, Ambassador. I cannot promise the council will accept your terms. Many will see this as blackmail. It is not blackmail. It is transparency. We are not demanding the council accept our terms or we will release this information. We are saying that any future relationship must be built on honesty, not on pretense." Talshir moved toward the exit, then paused. "There is something I must tell you, though I do so outside my official capacity. The council is already fracturing. Your withdrawal was not the cause, but it was the catalyst. Some species see this as an opportunity for reform. Others see it as a threat. In the coming months, you may face more than diplomatic pressure. Military action? Possibly. Or economic warfare, covert operations designed to destabilize your government. The council has many tools beyond direct confrontation. Be vigilant, Ambassador. Humanity has made powerful enemies today." After the envoy departed, Richard remained in the conference room. He stared out at the blue curve of Earth below. They had taken the first real step toward changing the galactic order. But Talshir's warning echoed in his mind. The easy part was over. Now came the hard work of survival. 6 weeks after High Envoy Talshir's visit, the cracks in the Galactic Council widened into open rifts. 3 minor species formally petitioned for membership reviews, citing humanity's evidence of systematic bias. The Drevian Empire withdrew from 2 joint defense initiatives, and on the industrial moon of Kepler 9, an explosion destroyed a facility where human engineers had been working with local technicians. The official report blamed faulty equipment. The unofficial truth was different. Agent Helen Carter briefed Earth's Security Council from a facility in Geneva. She had spent 3 weeks investigating the explosion. Her findings were clear. Sabotage, she confirmed. Our forensics team found trace elements of Xarian explosives in the debris. The blast was designed to look like an accident, but they made mistakes. 3 of our engineers are dead. 17 Kepler natives died as well. Admiral Christine Parker's expression hardened. Do we have proof the Xarian government was involved? Could this be rogue elements? The explosives came from a military stockpile. That level of access requires government authorization. They wanted to send a message. Humans are not safe outside their own territory. Richard studied the reconstruction of the blast. They are testing us. Push back too hard and we look like warmongers. Do not respond and we appear weak. Either way, they undermine our position. Patricia Hayes had been promoted to Director of External Security. So we find a third option. We cannot prove Xarian government involvement beyond reasonable doubt. But we can make it very expensive for them to try this again. Explain, Christine ordered. The Xarians depend on imported quantum processors for their defense grid. 90% of their supply comes from the Viridian Collective, who are neutral but profit-motivated. We have been developing our own quantum processing technology. If we offer the Viridians exclusive trade rights at 20% below Xarian prices, we accomplish two things. We cut off a critical Xarian supply line, and we demonstrate that attacking human interests has economic consequences. Nathan nodded approvingly. The beauty of it is that it is entirely legal under Council trade regulations. The Viridians can claim they are simply taking a better deal. No proof of retaliation, no violation of treaties. Do it, Richard decided. But quietly. Let the Xarians figure out what happened and why, and increase security around all human facilities in Council space. If this was a test, more attacks will come. He was right. Over the next month, human personnel faced 6 separate incidents. A medical team on Tarsus Prime was denied landing clearance during a plague outbreak. Human trade ships were subjected to excessive inspections. 3 freighters simply vanished while traveling through established routes. The message was clear. The Council's old powers wanted humanity to suffer for their defiance. But humanity adapted. For every attack, there was a response. Human quantum processors flooded the market, undercutting established suppliers. Advanced medical technology was shared freely with species who had been denied access for centuries. The 3 missing freighters reappeared 3 weeks later, accompanied by testimony about Drevian pirates operating with government approval. The galactic information networks buzzed with news. Humanity was not only surviving its isolation but thriving. They were offering alternatives to species tired of Council monopolies and restrictions. More than that, they were proving that the Council's control was not absolute. On the neutral station of Haven's Edge, representatives from 7 species gathered in secret. They called themselves the Independent Commerce Coalition. Everyone knew what they really were. Species willing to work with humanity despite Council pressure. Richard attended the meeting personally. Patricia and Nathan flanked him. Across the table sat delegates from species humanity had barely known 6 months ago. The insectoid Kresh, the aquatic Thalassa, the crystalline lumens, others who had been marginalized by the Council's power structure. Thank you for meeting with us, Richard began. I know this represents a risk for all of you. Delegate Shrix of the Kresh made a clicking sound with its mandibles. Among its kind, this indicated pleasure. Risk? Ambassador Cole, your species has offered us more in 6 weeks than the Council has in 6 centuries. Advanced agriculture techniques that will double our food production. Medical treatments for genetic disorders the Council claimed were impossible to cure. Defense systems that do not require us to mortgage 3 generations of labor to afford. The Thalassa representative spoke through a translation unit. Why, what does humanity gain from this generosity? The Council taught us that no species shares advanced technology without extracting a price. Partners, Richard said simply. The Council operates on a hierarchy. The oldest and most powerful species control everyone else. We are proposing something different. A network of independent species who trade freely, share knowledge openly, and support each other without demanding submission. A rival to the Council, the Lumen delegate observed. Its crystalline form refracted light in complex patterns. Not necessarily. If the Council reforms as we proposed, there is no reason we cannot all coexist. But if the Council continues to maintain its grip through suppression, then yes, we offer an alternative. The delegates exchanged glances. They communicated in the complex interplay of gesture and posture that transcended verbal language. Finally, Shrix spoke again. The Kresh Collective formally proposes a mutual defense pact with humanity, and any other species willing to sign. Small yes, but a beginning. If the Council's old powers wish to pressure us, let them face united resistance. One by one, the other delegates voiced their agreement. By the end of the meeting, 7 species had committed to what they termed the Haven Accord. Mutual defense, free trade, open technology sharing. It was not a rival government to the Galactic Council, not yet, but it was the seed of one. News of the Haven Accord reached the Galactic Council within hours. The response was swift and predictable. Vornash demanded immediate sanctions against the signatory species. The Xarian coordinator called for military intervention. The Drevian ambassador suggested the accord represented an act of war against galactic stability. But High Arbiter Zelthar saw something different. He saw the Council's greatest fear realized. Not a military challenge they could crush, but an ideological one they could not. Humanity had proven that species could thrive outside the Council's framework. Others would follow. In a private communication with High Envoy Tal Shir, Zelthar made his concerns known. We are watching the birth of a new order. The question is whether we adapt to it or whether we try to destroy it. And which do you advocate? Tal Shir asked. I am old, my friend. Too old, perhaps. But I remember when the Council was young and idealistic, when we truly believed we were creating a better galaxy. Somewhere along the way we lost that vision. Perhaps humans, with their refusal to accept limits, can help us find it again. Or perhaps they will tear everything down. Then we will rebuild, but this time perhaps we will build something worth preserving. The Council convened another emergency session. This time the debate lasted for 3 days. Species who had remained silent for centuries suddenly found their voices. The evidence humanity had presented could not be ignored. The corruption, the favoritism, the deliberate suppression of innovation. It was all there in undeniable detail. Some delegates called for war against humanity and their allies. Others demanded reforms. A few, the wisest among them, recognized that this was not a crisis to be solved through force or compromise. It was a moment of transformation. The galaxy was changing whether the Council liked it or not. On Earth, Richard received daily reports about the chaos spreading through Council space. Species were choosing sides. Trade routes were being redrawn. Alliances that had stood for millennia were crumbling. Some human advisors worried about the instability. They feared it would lead to war, but Richard understood something they did not. Stability without justice was not peace. It was merely the absence of visible conflict. The Council had maintained order by suppressing dissent and innovation. That order had been built on sand. Humanity had simply been the wind that revealed the Foundation's weakness. They will come to a decision soon, Patricia said one evening as they reviewed intelligence reports. Either they reform or they fight. There is no middle ground anymore. I know, Richard replied. And when they decide, we need to be ready. Not just militarily, but philosophically. If they choose reform, we need to help them build something better. If they choose war, we need to prove that the age of empires built on suppression is over. Nathan joined them, carrying a data pad. The Luna shipyards just completed the first carrier. The Armstrong is ready for trials. We also have confirmation that 12 more species have quietly opened trade negotiations with us. They have not signed the Haven Accord yet, but they are testing the waters. 12 more, Patricia repeated. If even half of them join us, that is 20 species standing against Council authority. That changes the balance of power significantly. Richard looked out the window at Earth below. The blue planet turned slowly, peaceful and beautiful. It was hard to believe that this world, so recently discovered by galactic civilization, had become the catalyst for such massive change. We did not set out to reshape the galaxy, he said quietly. We just wanted to be treated fairly, to have a chance to contribute, to be recognized as equals. But sometimes demanding justice for yourself opens the door for others to do the same. The Council is about to learn a hard lesson, Nathan observed. Power that is earned through merit and freely given through cooperation is stronger than power maintained through control and fear. They forgot that. We are about to remind them. The stage was set. The Council faced a choice. Reform or resist, adapt or die, and humanity, the upstart species that had dared to walk away, stood ready for whatever came next. They had lit a fire that was spreading across the galaxy. Now they would see if that fire would forge a better future, or burn the old order to ash. The Galactic Council chamber had never witnessed anything like it. For the first time in its 12,000-year history, the High Arbiter called for a vote of no confidence against the Inner Council. The select group of elder species who had controlled major decisions since the beginning now faced judgment from those they had ruled. High Arbiter Zelthar stood at the central podium. His ancient form seemed younger somehow, revitalized by purpose. Around him, representatives from 247 species waited in tense silence. The evidence humanity had compiled lay open for all to see. Centuries of manipulation, suppression, and self-dealing by those who claim to serve galactic peace. We stand at a crossroads, Zelthar declared. One path leads to the preservation of a system that has grown corrupt and self-serving. The other leads to uncertainty, but also to the possibility of renewal. The humans forced this moment upon us, but we owe them gratitude for it. They had the courage to say what many of us have thought for centuries. The council has lost its way. Vornash rose from his seat. His crystalline features were dark with fury. This is madness. We reject accusations compiled by a species that has been part of the council for barely 5 years. They manipulate you with partial truths and distortions. Then refute them, High Envoy Talshir said calmly. The luminary had spent months verifying humanity's data. The evidence was damning. Explain why 17 species with innovative technologies were denied membership. Explain why the council failed to intervene in 43 clear cases of aggressive expansion. Explain why life-saving technologies were shelved because they threatened established markets. Vornash had no answer. None of the accused could offer one that would satisfy the assembled delegates. The silence was telling. Guilt hung in the air like smoke. The vote, when it came, was not unanimous. But it was decisive. The inner council was dissolved. A new governance structure would be developed, one where all member species had equal voice in major decisions, and pending the establishment of that structure, High Arbiter Zelthar was granted emergency authority to negotiate with humanity. 3 days later, Richard returned to the council station. But this time as an equal rather than a supplicant. He brought representatives from the Haven Accord species, a delegation that demonstrated humanity was no longer alone in demanding change. The negotiations lasted 2 weeks. There were moments of heated argument, times when it seemed the talks would collapse, breakthroughs that came at unexpected hours from unexpected sources. But slowly, painfully, a new framework emerged. The reformed Galactic Council embodied the principles humanity had fought for. True sovereignty for all member species, with intervention only in cases of genuine aggression or atrocity. Equal representation in governance, with decisions made by majority vote rather than by an elite inner circle. And most importantly, a commitment to open technology sharing and mutual assistance rather than monopolistic control. Not everyone was happy. The Drevian Empire withdrew from the council entirely, refusing to accept limits on its expansion. 2 other species followed. The Ixarians remained but made clear their opposition to the reforms. But for every species that left or resisted, 3 more applied for membership under the new system. On the day the new charter was signed, Richard stood at the observation window. The same window he had looked through months before, when humanity had walked away from everything. Patricia joined him along with Nathan, Admiral Christine Parker, and many others who had worked to bring this moment to life. We did it, Patricia said quietly. Change the galaxy. Humanity did it, Richard corrected. Every engineer who refused to accept that council technology was the best possible. Every scientist who found better solutions to old problems. Every diplomat who endured condescension and still pushed forward. This belongs to all of us. High Arbiter Zelthar approached them, moving with the slow dignity of his great age. Ambassador Cole, I wanted to speak with you before the formal ceremonies begin. High Arbiter, I hope you do not regret your decision to support the reforms. Regret? No, but I do wonder what we have set in motion. Humanity has proven incredibly disruptive in a very short time. With full access to council resources and no restrictions on your development, you will advance at a pace the galaxy has never seen. That prospect frightens many species. It should, Richard admitted, but not because we plan conquest or domination. Humans are disruptive because we refuse to accept that progress has limits. We believe every problem has a solution if you work hard enough to find it. That philosophy will change things. But we are not doing this alone anymore. Every species in the Reformed Council has the same opportunities we do. Zelthar was silent for a moment. I am 5,000 years old, Ambassador. In all that time I have seen empires rise and fall. Technologies advance and stagnate. Species flourish and fade. But I have never seen anything like what is beginning now. You humans have a saying, I believe. May you live in interesting times. That is actually meant as a curse, Patricia noted with a smile. Is it? How fitting. Because what comes next will be both blessing and curse, triumph and tribulation. The galaxy is about to become very interesting indeed. The old arbiter departed, leaving the humans to contemplate his words. Nathan broke the thoughtful silence. He is right. We have opened a door that cannot be closed. Some species will embrace the changes. Others will fight them. There will be conflict. There is always conflict, Admiral Christine said. The question is whether it is conflict in service of growth or conflict to maintain stagnation. I would rather fight for progress than accept peace through suppression. Richard gazed out at the stars, at the vast expanse of space that humanity had only begun to explore. You know what the real revolution is? It is not the technology or the reformed government. It is the idea that any species, no matter how young or supposedly primitive, can contribute something valuable to galactic civilization. The Council spent millennia assuming that age meant wisdom, and power meant rightness. We proved them wrong, so what now? Patricia asked. We have won the diplomatic battle. What is next for humanity? Now we prove we deserve this victory, Richard said. We show the galaxy that humans do not just tear down old systems. We can build better ones. We explore. We innovate. We cooperate with species who share our values. And when species like the Drevians try to exploit the chaos of transition, we stand firm. Sounds like hard work, Nathan observed. The hardest, Richard agreed, but that is what humans do best. We thrive on challenges that would break other species. The Galactic Council learned that when we walked away. Now they're about to learn what happens when we walk back in as equals. The formal signing ceremony began an hour later. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to witness the transformation of galactic governance. Human musicians performed alongside alien artists, creating harmonies that had never existed before. Scientists from a dozen worlds discussed collaborations that would have been impossible under the old regime. And in quiet conversations throughout the station, the future was being planned. As Richard signed humanity's name to the new charter, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. The years of frustration, the moment of defiance, the risks they had taken and the allies they had found. It had been dangerous, costly, and at times seemed impossible. But humans had never been very good at accepting impossible. That evening, as Earth rotated into view below the station, Richard recorded a message to be broadcast across human space and beyond. It was brief, but it captured the moment. To the people of Earth and all human colonies, this is Ambassador Richard Cole. Today, humanity took its place as a full and equal member of galactic civilization, not because we were granted permission, but because we demanded recognition of what we had earned. We walked away from a system that constrained us. In doing so, we helped create a better one. But this is not the end of our journey. It is the beginning. We have proven we can stand beside species who have existed for millennia. Now we must prove we can run alongside them, or even ahead of them, while remaining the species we pride ourselves on being. Curious, innovative, unwilling to accept that any challenge is too great. The galaxy is vast, filled with wonders we have yet to discover and problems we have yet to solve. Some species will welcome our contributions, others will resist them. There will be conflicts, setbacks, and moments when we question whether we made the right choice. But I have no doubt about our future, because if humanity has proven anything in our short time among the stars, it is this: we do not bow, we do not break, and we never stop reaching for what others say is beyond our grasp. The Galactic Council shook when we severed negotiations. Today it transforms because we returned with a better vision. Tomorrow, who knows what we will accomplish. The stars are waiting. Let us show them what humanity can do. The transmission ended. Richard stood at the window for a long time after, watching Earth turn below. Patricia and Nathan joined him. No one spoke. There was nothing more to say. They had changed the galaxy, not through conquest or superior firepower, though humanity had proven capable of both. They had changed it through the simple act of refusing to accept injustice, of walking away from a broken system and demonstrating that there was another way. Other species had suffered under the Council's control for centuries, but only humanity had dared to leave. Only humanity had been willing to risk everything for the chance to live on their own terms. And in doing so, they had shown everyone else that it was possible. The old order was dead. A new one was being born, and humanity, the youngest species in galactic civilization, stood at the center of it all, not as rulers or conquerors, but as the spark that had ignited a fire of change. Where that fire would lead, no one could say. There would be challenges ahead. Resistance from those who clung to the old ways. Conflicts with species who saw reform as weakness. Economic upheaval as monopolies crumbled and new trade networks formed. But there would also be opportunities. New partnerships between species who had been kept apart by council politics. Technological breakthroughs as innovation was encouraged rather than suppressed. A galaxy where merit mattered more than age, and where any species could rise as far as their talents would take them. It would not be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But humanity had proven something important over the past months. They had proven that change was possible, that the powerful could be challenged, that a better future could be built if enough people were willing to fight for it. "Come on," Richard said finally, turning away from the window. "We have work to do. A galaxy to help rebuild, a future to create, and a promise to keep to all those species who dared to believe that things could be better." They walked out of the observation room together. Behind them, Earth continued its eternal rotation. Ahead of them lay a galaxy transformed, and throughout that galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, billions of beings looked to the stars with new hope. The humans had shown them the way. Now it was time to walk that path together, into a future where no species would ever again have to choose between submission and isolation, where progress was celebrated rather than feared, where the galaxy's youngest could teach its eldest, and where every voice had equal weight. It was the beginning of a new era. And humanity, the species that had refused to bow, stood ready to help build it. Not as masters, but as partners. Not as conquerors, but as friends. Together with anyone brave enough to demand a better galaxy. The stars were waiting, and humanity was ready.